You don't have to have money to have a beautiful Christmas wreath for your front door, and today I'm going to show you how. This video is part of a Christmas crafting collab hosted by Heidi Sonboul DIY. Her channel, as well as the playlist of all the other amazing crafters, will be in my description box below so that you can have tons of Christmas ideas. The first thing I did was to go outside and cut some pine branches. Definitely a benefit of living in Maine. Next, I found myself a stick that was pretty bendy, and as you can see, I am trying to form it into a circle. And if you decide to use this as your form, remember it doesn't have to be a perfect circle by any stretch of the imagination, because as you cover it with pine, it's going to look like a circle. If you were going to make an indoor wreath, you could always cut a circle from cardboard. I didn't want to do this because I was afraid it would get wet outside. Once I have my circle, I have the branch overlapped and I'm just winding it with wire. I couldn't find my pruning shears, so these will have to do, and I'm just cutting now the extra branch off. It was a little harder than I thought it was going to be. Now I'm just trying to manipulate it as best I can to make it as much of a circle as possible. I'm cutting off any little tiny branches that are sprigging off from the main branch. Is sprigging even a word? I don't know. I picked a longer branch to start with, and my thinking was I would put it on the thinnest part of my wreath form first. I'm cutting a part off that was kind of sparse because it's not going to look that pretty. So my thinking is I'll start where my form is at its thinnest, and I'll use a bigger branch, and that will help to reinforce the thinner spot. All you do to make a wreath is you wire your branches to the form that you're using. It's so completely simple. Wherever you see a bare patch, you just add more branches. My thinking was I would go all the way around the wreath with the bigger branches, and that sort of helps to set a base. And sometimes I'll have a sparse spot, so I will just wire a couple of branches together before I wire them down to my form. If you see a spot that's not wired down well, you just add more wire. It could not be more simple. Of course, when you're using natural pine versus artificial pine, there's going to be more sparse spots. It's going to wing out in areas you don't want. So I am taking apart branches, wiring them together, and then putting them on my form as well. Because of the type of pine that I'm using, it's going to look a bit like a wreath spray. There's different types of pine that are used in wreaths, and it's a good exercise to go onto Google and to use Google Images to look at the different types of wreaths and to look very closely at what type of pine they're actually using. The great part about the type of pine that I'm using is it's not real tough on your hands. Some pine is really very sharp and very rugged, and it's very difficult to work with your hands. You're going to get sore, but this is actually a very soft pine. Once I get my first layer down, I'm going by areas that look empty to me and need to be built up. I'm not real worried about how far out my branches are spraying. That's something I'm going to be taking care of at the end. Right now, I'm just getting everything wired down, and I'm making sure that I don't have any thin spots. Also, when you're using such a thin form like I am, my form is actually a branch, then it's not going to be a really fat wreath, if you know what I mean, not really wide, but I'm liking that because I realize it's going to lay nice and flat against my front door. When you're satisfied with the amount of greenery, then it's time to decorate. I decided I'd like to use some pine cones on my wreath, but I wanted them to be silver. I happen to have some silver spray paint, so I'm putting them down on a paper bag and I'm going to give them a good spray with some silver spray paint. I'm not waiting for them to dry. As soon as I spray the one side, I'm flipping them right over and spraying the other side. It always pays to have a little bit of time away from your project as you're working, and just going out there gathering pine cones and spray painting them gave me a little bit of clarity. So when I came back in, I realized there were some spots that I wanted to beef up a bit with more small branches, and I decided to glue them down because they do get a pinched look from wiring them, which is fine for the bottom, but now I'm being a little bit more artistic and I'm deciding what direction I want each little branch to go so that the wreath looks like the way I want it to look. And honestly, when I do a craft project, I have a basic idea of what I want to do, but I don't really plan it out too much. I just start creating and I do more as I go. I get a little bit more clarity. Honestly, my pine cones aren't even completely dry. I left them for about a half an hour, so they're pretty dry to the touch. And I'm placing them now and deciding how I would like them to be. I also always hold up the wreath and decide what looks like it should be the top, where I'm going to hang it. And mine came to a little slight bit of a point at the top, so I decided that's where I would want to hang it. And so I am placing my pine cones at the bottom, and I'm just going to go from there. I'm trying not to be too fussy here. I want it to look natural. I'm just testing out where I might like them to go. Do I want some natural looking pine cones as well, or do I just want to stick with the silver? I'm just plotting out how things are going to look. Once I have a decision, I start gluing them down. If you're new to my channel, I am all about encouraging people who are taking care of their homes. On my channel, you'll find cleaning videos, cleaning tips, cooking videos, recipes, and DIYs. I like to do DIYs about once a month, but my major goal is to encourage people who are taking care of their homes like I am. And I do that by showing what I'm doing around my house, as well as providing words of affirmation during many of my videos. If that's something that sounds attractive to you, I hope you'll consider poking around my channel, watching a few more videos, and ultimately deciding that you might like to become a part of a positive community and subscribing. With some of my pine cones down, I decided it was time to place my bow. Now, I will say what I did was I raided my Christmas box of ornaments and bows and all the things that I've gathered over the years. I have this beautiful red bow that has wired ribbon. It costs about $3 if you were to buy it currently. There's also a lot of really beautiful ribbons, all made for you at the Dollar Tree. I'm just wiring this down to my wreath. That way, if I don't like how I placed it, it's easy enough to move it. With my wreath attached, I'm going to take this loose ribbon and I'm going to kind of place it where I want it. And then the longer piece, I'm going to glue down to the sides. My bow had kind of gotten squished in storage, so now I'm just manipulating the wire to make it nice and full. I found this angel in our Christmas ornaments, and hopefully no one will miss it because I'm gluing it down to my wreath. I thought she made a nice focal point on the bottom where I have the focal point of the wreath on top. Then on the bottom I have the angel where the pine cones come together, and now I can add some more of my pine cones. There's a phase in every project I want to warn you about, and that is the ugly phase. You get to a point many times where you're thinking, I'm not even sure I like this, and I don't know how to redeem it. And I think that's completely normal, and I definitely went through this with this particular wreath, and I thought, boy, I don't know if this is going to come together. But you just keep working, you keep tweaking, and you keep coming up with ideas, and you know when to take a break and step away from it so you can get a fresh perspective. I also think Christmas ornaments look so pretty on a Christmas wreath, so I found some small silver ones, blue and silver, and also a white sparkle. I'm starting with wiring 2 of the silver balls together, and then I'm going to glue them down to the wreath. I like the look of them when they're wired together and they come together at the top. I am just adding and creating as I go. I thought I was done, but I realized I thought that the silver on the pine cones looked very dull in person. So what I decided to do was to paint over the tips. And I'm not fussy with this. I'm just kind of painting over the top with Mod Podge, and then I'm going to drop silver glitter and then a little bit of red glitter on top of that to tie in the silver with the red. And once I did that, I was in love with my wreath. Now I'm trimming whatever branches just seem to have no purpose and just getting those right out of the way. I sincerely hope I've inspired you to go outside and forage around and see what you can find for free wreath materials out in your own backyard or in the woods near your home. And then just forage through all of your Christmas decor. Find some things that you can repurpose to make a beautiful wreath of your own. Thanks again to Heidi Sonboul for hosting this open collab. I'll have her channel as well as the playlist of all the ladies who are creating Christmas themed crafts in my description box below. I just know you're going to find some great ideas. And remember, as always, that God loves you and I love you too, and I can't wait to see you next time.